Pagan Perspective. It is subweek, it is Friday, and we are talking about the pantheons we choose to work with. As you may have watched last week, it was mostly focused on Celtic pantheon and resources. For me, I work with many pantheons, and Celtic is one of them. The only goddess I work with is the Morrigan. I do tend to work with generally the darker type entity goddesses. They're not bad goddesses, they just have more of like a darker mystique about them. I would say if you're going to just do some quick interweb research, journeying to the goddess website, if you type it in, it'll pop up. I found pretty good information, like with the correspondence, a little bit of basic history. I found that to be pretty useful. There are so many books on so many gods and goddesses that a Google search will bring up so many. I couldn't list them all. But for me personally, because of my visual issues, I tend not to read books because most of them aren't audiobooks. So I'll just talk about a little bit of the other pantheons I do work with, since Celtic's been covered pretty thoroughly. I take every pantheon from Hindu to Buddhist to Egyptian, some of the South American gods and goddesses, Native American, Hawaiian. I'm trying to think about more. Funny enough, I don't really work with like Greek or Roman, which are extremely popular. Very, very little with the Norse. So some of the gods and goddesses I work with are the Morrigan. Kuan Yin is probably my most associated. You can't really see here, but I have a huge tapestry of Kuan Yin. I'm very, very into the Asian pantheons there. Kali, Shiva, like thinking off the top of my head, it's kind of difficult. I've worked a little bit with like Pele, and some of these may not be seen as like deities. They might be more seen as just entities or sages, or even some Christian-based ones, such as Santa Morte. What I'm doing right now, because I'm still learning a lot about pantheons and whatnot, I have I've assigned every month to research a god or goddess that I am interested in, to learn more. Learn about the correspondence, learn about its history, learn about the region where it came from. Like I've said, I've touched on Morrigan, Bast, Kuan Yin, Yamaya I was slightly interested in, and then found that I don't have a good pull with that goddess. But I'm kind of open to researching different pantheons in different regions of the world, because I think implementing, and this is just my opinion, because obviously there are people in the path who use just one pantheon, or don't use a pantheon at all, or feel weird about incorporating different spiritual paths that are not pagan into pagan deity worship or symbolic use of them or whatnot. I'm an eclectic witch, so everything's on the table for me anyways. And I find each god or goddess I work with, which most are goddesses, or very androgynous male gods, I find that each region brings something unique to the table, like each unique pantheon or place of where they originated from, because excuse me, my voice is going. As you know, like, there are very different beliefs from in North North gods in the North regions, like Norwegian region, Scandinavian region, to compare to, say, South American um, pantheons and deities and whatnot. The needs are very different, especially back in the day, back hundreds, thousands of years or whatnot when they started. Obviously, Norse gods are going to be used for different needs because of the different climate, different landscape, um, different type of interaction with the people around them, compared to, say, people in the South America, where obviously is drastically different. It's a drastically different climate, drastically different, just two different worlds completely. I mean, there's still going to be similar things being done, such as like fertility for women and for crops. It'll just be in different regions. Like sometimes, like maybe in the South American areas, would they be wanting more rain, where in, say, the Norwegian area, they would be wanting more sun, just because of how far apart they are from the equator. I find that before you really start like working with a specific deity or pantheon, you really, really have to educate yourself about what it all encompasses, because each pantheon is unique, not just because of where they originated from, but how they worshipped was different. Like Greek and Roman gods and goddesses were worshipped in a very different way than, say, Buddhist or Asian gods and goddesses. Like some may meditate more to relate to their gods and goddesses, where others are more physical offerings are needed. There may be some traditions where there are pretty extreme things to do to dedicate yourself to that pantheon. For me, I don't feel a need to dedicate myself to a single pantheon, to a single god or goddess. I am just, for me, I don't see them as real entities. I see them as mythology and symbolic aspects, which are just as useful due to placebo effect or whatever. That's just how I work with my gods and goddesses. Trying to think of anything else. Trying to think of resources. The internet's a wonderful thing, but it also can be a pain in the butt, because where you can find great loads of information, how much of that information is someone's opinion and how much of it is fact, how much it is it like traditional information compared to New Age traditions. I guess it just depends on what you are trying to do with your gods or goddesses. Like, if you are wanting to really embrace the original culture of that tradition, you need to research that specific way of worship or dedication or whatever it is you're looking into. You have to be very mindful of what your goal is. Also, if you're going to work with deities, I would of different pantheons, just respect the culture they came from. It's as simple as that, because I think maybe newer people to the craft or the pagan path, or especially younger folk, will just be like, oh, what is it? I'm not familiar with every type of god and goddess, but say a god or goddess deity that is associated with money. Maybe someone will be like, okay, I'm going to buy a statue of this deity, and just having the statue will give me more money. That doesn't work that way. You have to research what that deity is about, if they require offerings, if they require meditation. It just all depends on what that deity is about and what that culture is about. You can't just be like, plop, here it is. Okay, now give me money. It's like holding up a bank. It's like, it doesn't work. Or it might work, but you're going to have some serious repercussions coming from it, depending on how you practice. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Do your research. Keep an open mind of if you're looking on the internet, and make sure to look at the references that these people are using, if they're just opinions or if they're legitimate resources. And with books, there's books on every pantheon. I would highly recommend reading, really reading the mythology behind the pantheons, because every pantheon has a mythology, and a lot of them are very similar in the storylines, but are unique to that specific culture. I took a class in college that was about mythology, and I was like, wow, they are very similar in the lessons learned, or I don't know, but human nature isn't that drastically different. Well, the lessons can still be learned with these gods and goddesses. Yeah, I think that's about it. So I hope you got what you were looking for from this video, and I hope I gave enough information. So I will talk to you guys later. Bye.